Welcome to Doing Business Gently. If you're a woman over 50 who has built a business alongside personal health challenges, caregiving, and the ever-changing world of entrepreneurship, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Marta Gertson, and on this show, we talk about building a simple and sustainable business that fits your current season of life and doing that gently from a place of rest. We all know that we need rest. And yet we all seem to have this tendency to push it off and say, I'm going to rest later. When I have some time, I'll take a break. Once I've gotten through this to-do list, I have one more thing I want to accomplish. And a lot of times for me, I find myself saying, well, I haven't done enough. I haven't done enough to earn it. And that's something I'm working on for myself. And through this series, what my goal is for all of us is that we redefine how we look at rest and our need for it, and the fact that it comes in many different shapes and forms, and it's not always about sleep. So think of it this way. When you look at the definition for is a strategic withdrawal to gather your resources together. And so when we're talking about rest, that's what it is. It's about stepping back strategically so that you can gather your resources. You can come over here and refill your tank. You can refill your cup. So when we're talking about rest, when we talk about taking a break, when we're talking about retreating, this isn't just about sleep. It is finding ways to rest that work for you. And in this series, we are continuing to take a look at the 5 different types of rest that all of us need. In the last episode, we looked at mental rest. In this episode, we're looking at emotional rest. And in future episodes, we're going to look at physical, spiritual, and work rest, so that you're learning to work from a place of rest or live from a place of rest. Because when we don't take the time to acknowledge the type of rest we need in each season, and a season can be a day, a week, a month, a year, things start to happen. And a lot of times we can't figure out why we are feeling so overwhelmed and so stressed. When you get to that point, it's probably because you haven't taken a break. You've been pushing so hard that you've forgotten how to rest, or you've forgotten your need for rest. And you haven't refilled those reserves, refilled those tanks that you need to make it through that tough season or that busy season. And then you can add on those layers of caregiving or health issues, or sometimes you're just in a busy season of gentle business building. And yes, you can be busy while building a gentle business. And that's a whole other story. We'll have another episode specifically on that. All of these things are connected. And each season, when we learn to pay attention, shows us the type of rest that we need. And when we're looking at emotional rest, I think a lot of us underestimate our need for it. Sometimes we don't even acknowledge that we need emotional rest. And we don't take the time to learn how to incorporate simple practices to help us get emotional rest. But when we ignore it, it is to our detriment, and we don't need any of that, do we? So as we dive into this idea of emotional rest, let's define what it is. Because for me, I often look at emotional rest and mental rest as the same thing. For me, they're very closely related, but they are on different aspects of our person, of who we are. When we look at the need for mental rest, this is all about giving the brain a break from making those to-do lists, from checking off just one more item off of it, from always thinking, from problem solving. Whereas emotional rest is when we find ways to express ourselves and we stop trying to stuff our feelings down so we don't have to deal with them, or we stop trying to hide ourselves and not showing up. And a lot of times, it also comes in the form of people pleasing. We're trying to shrink ourselves in order to make sure that other people are taken care of. And that shows up in our caregiving. That shows up in our client care. So to give you an example, for mental rest, I do have a problem with racing thoughts. And this is because I am an idea person. And a lot of times those ideas can get stuck in my head. And so my brain is trying to capture it and remember it and not forget about it. And so a lot of times it keeps me up at night. And I've learned ways to deal with that. And I have some things that I do to help me get all that information out of my brain. But when that happens, that shows me that I need some mental rest. Whereas if I am feeling angsty and I'm not sure what's going on and I can't put my finger on it, a lot of times for me, that's showing that I need emotional rest, especially during intense season of caregiving, or my fibromyalgia is ramping up, or I'm just in a busy season of business building. So mental rest is where we're trying to hold everything in our brain and remember it. Emotional rest is when we're trying to hold everything together for everybody. And a lot of times we're trying to hold it all together in such a way that it's contained in our body. Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith wrote an amazing book, and I highly recommend it. It's called Sacred Rest. And in it, she describes the 7 types of rest that she has categorized out. But she describes emotional rest as the freedom to express your feelings without filters and removing the pressure to constantly please others. It means having the space to be authentic about how you are feeling. And how many of us have that space to be authentic about how you're feeling with friends, family, colleagues? And when you do not have that safe space to show up and express how you're feeling, that can create an emotional load that becomes heavy to carry. So when we're looking for ways to simply add emotional rest into our schedules, let's look at a few tips. And I'm going to give you some ideas here, and then I'm going to give you some personal examples from my own life to help ground it and give you some ideas on how you can do this. There are a lot of ways. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but it gives you a starting point. One is setting clear boundaries. And this is something that happened to me early on in my business. I realized I had just copied my experience in the corporate world. I was doing a quote unquote 9 to 5, but I was working 50, 60 hours a week. I was having long days and often having to come in over the weekend to try to keep up so I wouldn't be so behind when it got to Monday. Well, guess what? Because I was so ingrained on how I did that I did that in my business. I let my clients contact me over the weekend or late at night. And it soon became obvious that that was not sustainable. That's the reason I had left my corporate job. It was starting to kill me. The stress levels that I was experiencing was killing me. And I wasn't getting the mental rest. And I definitely wasn't given the emotional rest that I needed. And I didn't have the support to do any of that. So it became important for me to find ways to set those boundaries and give myself the support I needed to have the type of rest I needed in starting this new business. One of the first things I did that really did make a difference was letting my clients know I was no longer available on the weekends. Was that a popular decision? Not for everybody. Thankfully, I have some great clients, and most of them thoroughly understood and actually applauded me for doing it, which encouraged me to keep going and setting more boundaries. It also meant that my family couldn't just pop by or call me at any time of day and ask me to do something. There's something weird that when you start working from home, everybody thinks all of a sudden you're available. No, I still have a business. I'm still working. I'm just doing it in a different format. And then also a lot of times you have to set clear boundaries with yourself that you need to shut down your office for your own sake and show up with your family or go do those caregiving responsibilities or go exercise, go move, whatever you need to do to give yourself a time of rest. But setting those clear boundaries gives you a way to create margin and space for whatever type of rest that you need. And it does make a big difference in your emotional health. One of my favorite ways to incorporate habits for emotional rest and emotional health is journaling. Journaling is a way for you to express yourself without those filters. Whereas boundaries a lot of times has to do with people pleasing, journaling is that safe place to express yourself. Journaling is just for you. You do not have to share it. You can actually tear out that page and shred it or burn it, whatever you want to do, or you can keep it. But it is a safe place for you to show up and express yourself and what's going on. I have 2 journals. I have one for my personal life and I have one for my business. And in both places, I can express what I'm feeling about my health, my caregiving, what's going on in my life. And in my business journal, I'm expressing what's going on in my business, what's frustrating me, what's exciting me, what are my thoughts, what am I thinking about this idea or that idea. And it is a great place to show up and express what's going on in the moment. If you do a search on the benefits of writing by hand or journaling by hand, you will run across some amazing studies where they actually hook people up to equipment and they measure activity in the brain. And there is a significant difference when you are typing on the keyboard versus taking a pen to paper and writing something out longhand in a journal or a notebook. Your brain works differently. You start to see connections differently. You start to have aha moments. You start to see, oh, that's what's going on. And you can actually understand yourself a little bit better. I will link a blog post in the show notes about the benefits of journaling by hand. And researching that blog post, I've came across so many fascinating studies of why we need to write by hand and not everything needs to be digital or on a keyboard. And when you're learning to express yourself, journaling is a great way to do that. When it comes to understanding our emotions, and when there are negative emotions, not everything, but a lot of those negative emotions have an underlying layer of fear. Fear impacts a lot of what we do in our business. We're afraid to show up. We're afraid to be visible. We're afraid that something's not going to work. But we can just feel this general sense of angst and anxiety. But when you sit with it for a little bit and you journal it, or maybe you're learning to set new boundaries, by naming that fear, it loses some of its grip and you can start to identify the emotion that I'm afraid, or I'm fearful, or I'm concerned. And you can name what is triggering that emotion. You can acknowledge it and you can start to deal with it. So naming your fear, naming the emotion that you're in at the moment can help you manage and express your emotions. And that right there is a huge emotional relief. And then think about some of the mindful activities that you can do. You can walk, you can take a bath, you can take a shower, you can color, you can bake, you can create, you can crochet, knit. I have a friend who loves to clean her house. When things are getting angsty, she likes to clean her house. And I have volunteered my house to her on many occasions. Unfortunately, she doesn't live in the same state, so that doesn't happen. But find your way to express yourself creatively. One of the things that I would like to recommend to you is finding a community where you can express your feelings, whether it's about your personal life, whether it's about your business. Having someone that you can talk to about what you're going through and expressing it without fear of judgment. And that is not easy to find. You may have somebody that you can talk to on a regular basis about what's going on in your life, but then you bring up your business and their eyes kind of glaze over. Or you have somebody that you can talk about your business, but you're not sure if you want to share your personal life with them, which is totally okay, because again, we're setting boundaries. But if you don't have a place to express what's going on in your personal life, that can become an emotional trigger for you. So finding a place where you can express yourself emotionally and be acknowledged and feel seen and heard is an important aspect of emotional rest. So just as a quick recap, rest is not a luxury item. It is a necessity. We all have different types of rest that we need. And when we're talking about emotional rest, we're talking about setting those boundaries. We're talking about journaling and expressing your emotions. It's about understanding what is making you feel emotional and naming that emotion or naming that fear. You can acknowledge it and you can see it. And a lot of times when you can name it, it loses some of its hold on you. We need to have activities that we can incorporate simply and easily to express ourselves. And then also we need safe places to show up and be ourselves, our emotional selves. And that needs to be in your personal life and your business life. And those do not necessarily show up out of the blue. You often have to go find them. So having said all that, if you are looking for a place to show up fully as you in your business and you're looking for a community to grow with you and a place where you can find safety in expressing how you are feeling about your business and what's going on, I would invite you to check out the Gentle Business Mastermind. This is something that we do in our community, which is an off Facebook community. It's a private community, and it's something that we definitely do in our calls and our gatherings together. Each month we'd look at a different theme, and right along with the podcast, right now we're talking about rest. How are we resting? What are our plans for rest? And we have a way to express ourselves safely without judgment and getting support and feel like we were actually seen and heard. So if you would like to have gentle business building tips, if you would like to have a safe place to show up as yourself, a safe place to show up and ask questions, big and small, or just simply to ask for prayer that you're struggling and you would like someone to pray with you, all of those are welcome in what we do in the community. The Gentle Business Mastermind is for women who have established businesses, they're over 50, and they're looking to create a business that fits them in the current season of life and is simple and sustainable and something that they can steward well and show up and make an impact in the lives of the people they serve. And we do this by journeying together in the mastermind. You can learn more about the mastermind at selastudios.co/mastermind. And in the next episode, we're continuing this journey and we're going to be looking at the need for physical rest. And again, physical rest does not always mean taking a nap or getting to sleep earlier. So I hope you'll join me in the next episode as we explore what physical rest actually is.